G'day, Sea Dog here. Welcome to my channel for high school drilling students. Okay, so we're up to the twisting of our little ring so that the links sit flat, because that's how Cuban chains look really nicely, because it all sits flat and then you file the facets and so on. Before we twist the chain flat, we're just going to anneal it because we want it nice and soft for this process, and hopefully we also want it evenly soft. So soft but soft at the same amount of softness across the whole chain. So I'm just going to apply heat to each of the, along the whole length of the chain like this, and when it's a dull red I'll quench it, and that should give us a nicely prepared chain with no stresses in the links, ready to twist beautifully. So I can see that it's just starting to go dull red now. I don't want to go too hot because I don't want it to fuse the solder joins that we've already done to each other. So I'm going to stop it there. Okay, now it doesn't look any different, but it is different because it's nice and soft. So that's going to be beautiful now we can twist that up so it sits nice and flat. Okay, we're just about to twist our chain up. I'm going to do one more little thing, and that is just to check one by one the soldering joins on these links. I just want to check that there's no problems, because the last thing I want is for this chain to snap while I'm twisting it, because there's a tremendous amount of pressure. When you twist a chain, it puts a lot of pressure on each soldering joint, and the old saying, it'll break at the weakest link, is very, that's where the saying comes from. If we haven't got good joins, the weakest one of these will break, so they all need to be equally strong. So just need to check the quality. It's worth that little bit of investment in time and to fix it if we need to before we twist it. Beautiful. So these are all looking really nice. There. And they're all really, really good. So we are ready to do our twist. You notice it's nice and white. That's because I just pickled it after I annealed it. I put in the pickle for a while. I like to work with clean silver, and silver is clean when it's white in this state before we buff it. So this is beautiful and clean, and that's good practice to get into. Okay, so we're at the stage now where we've got our chain all soldered up and it's looking beautiful. What I've done is I've annealed it so it's nice and soft evenly along the length of it, and I've also pickled it so it's nice and clean. So the tools we're going to use here are very simple tools. I've got a pair of small vice grips, one which is going to grab each end, so one vice grip for each hand. I like these little ones because by comparison to these big normal ones, you can see the size difference, nearly a bit over half the size. Much easier to use these for small processes with little projects like this. The other thing I've got on hand are these parallel pliers here. I may need that just to tweak the twist. I may not need these, but I've got them on hand ready because we want to make sure that at the moment of twist we're all prepared so that everything can go as smooth as possible. So I'm just going to get a pair of these and just make sure that they actually clamp nice and firmly on the one end of our chain, and I'm just going to lock those on, and you hear that nice click. I'm going to pop those upside down in the vise. The reason for that is it gets us a nice clear access of vision to the chain here, so I can see clearly what's going on. And then I grab the other end and just click the vice grips on this end, And then I'm just going to do my best to straighten the chain. Now what I mean by that is to have these links here all facing upright, and they're pretty good now in a line, and these other ones horizontal. So one row of links is upright, one row is fairly horizontal, and then I can start the twist. The other thing I need to mention is that I need to be keeping a lot of pressure that way, so pulling it towards myself, otherwise this chain is going to bind up on itself. We may not get this in one hit, but we might get it in one hit. If we don't, we just need to go back, anneal it, and then bring it back to twist a little bit more. So we'll start the twist and we'll see how we go. So far so good. I'm really leaning back on it, keeping it tight. At this point, obviously, there's a lot of stress on each of those links, and if there's a dodgy soldering joint, it's going to be, this is the time when it's going to be found out. But I'm really happy with that. That's a nice flat twist. What we're going to do in a second is release this off these vice grips and just put it on a piece of jarrah, on a nice flat piece of jarrah, and then put another piece of jarrah on top of the chain and just whack it with a hammer, and that'll help it finally just sort of sit perfectly flat. Down there, go back to my little jarrah block and pop it on there, give it another whack.